Self-awareness is often praised as one of the most important qualities a person can develop. It's the ability to look inward, to understand your emotions, your patterns, your motives, and the reasons behind your behaviors. People are told that being self-aware will make them wiser, more emotionally stable, and more capable of navigating life. And in many ways that's true. But what almost no one talks about is the hidden line, the silent boundary where healthy self-awareness transforms into something that begins to quietly work against you. The danger begins when your awareness becomes so sharp, so active, so constant, that you stop living naturally. Instead of experiencing life, you analyze it. Instead of feeling emotions, you dissect them. Instead of allowing yourself to simply be yourself, you turn into a watcher of your own mind, observing everything you do as if you're standing outside your own body, judging, evaluating, and measuring every moment. At first, it feels like growth. You tell yourself that you're becoming more mature, more mindful, more in control. But slowly, without you noticing, self-awareness becomes self-surveillance. You begin to monitor your tone when you speak, the micro-expressions on your face, the motives behind your actions, the intention behind every word. You question whether you're being authentic or just performing. You wonder whether your decisions come from your true self or from a fear you haven't fully understood yet. This constant inward gaze creates an invisible tension inside you. The mind becomes a microscope, and you place yourself under it. Every flaw appears bigger. Every insecurity becomes louder. Every small mistake feels symbolic of something deeper, something wrong with you, something you must fix. And because you are always observing yourself, you stop trusting your natural impulses. You second-guess thoughts that used to feel normal. You doubt emotions that once flowed freely. You become hesitant, cautious, overly intentional, as if every part of your identity must be managed rather than experienced. The illusion here is that the more you examine yourself, the more you think you understand yourself. But in reality, excessive self-awareness often pulls you further away from your true nature. You start creating theories about yourself, mental narratives about who you are, why you behave the way you do, and what your inner problems might be. But these narratives are not always accurate. They are interpretations, not truths. And when you interpret yourself too much, you begin to live through those interpretations instead of through reality. In this way, self-awareness turns into a trap. It makes you believe you're becoming wiser, when actually you're becoming more disconnected from your instincts, your spontaneity, your natural rhythm. You stop living through experience and start living through evaluation. This is the silent danger of becoming too self-aware. You lose the ability to be human without constantly analyzing your own humanity. There is a fine line between reflection and overthinking, and most people don't realize when they've quietly crossed it. Reflection is healthy. It allows you to process experiences, understand mistakes, and grow from what you've learned. But when you become too self-aware, reflection can gradually shift into something more obsessive. Instead of looking back to understand, you look back to judge. Instead of learning from your experiences, you replay them endlessly, searching for something wrong with the way you behaved. This is where overthinking begins to take control. You start questioning the meaning behind every gesture you made, every word you chose, every tone you used. You wonder if you should have been more confident, more polite, more assertive, more anything. You replay conversations in your mind, imagining different ways you could have responded. You start dissecting moments that other people forgot within seconds, while you carry them like weight on your shoulders. What was once simply a moment becomes a puzzle you're desperately trying to solve. This constant replaying creates a mental loop that traps you inside your own head. You no longer experience life in real time. You experience it in hindsight, analyzing it after it happens, judging whether you acted correctly. The present moment becomes something you observe rather than participate in. You're so busy thinking about what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow that today becomes blurry, distant, unreal. Over time, this habit begins to affect your confidence. You lose trust in your ability to handle situations naturally because you've trained your mind to believe that every action must be examined and improved. You become afraid of making mistakes, afraid of saying something imperfect, afraid of being judged, not even by others, but by yourself. The voice in your head becomes a critic, pointing out everything you could have done differently, everything you should have known better. And the more aware you become of your own thoughts, the more thoughts you have to analyze. It becomes a cycle. You analyze your feelings, then analyze the analysis, then question why you feel the need to analyze at all. Your mind becomes a maze filled with endless corridors of self-questioning. Instead of clarity, you find confusion. Instead of growth, you find hesitation. Your inner world becomes so loud that you struggle to hear your natural intuition beneath the noise. This overthinking also drains your emotional energy. Small decisions begin to feel heavy. Simple choices like what to say, what to wear, or how to eat or behave become mentally exhausting. You feel the weight of every action because you know you will examine it later. Life stops feeling spontaneous and starts feeling rehearsed, controlled, cautious. You are no longer living, you are managing yourself. This is the hidden danger. When reflection becomes overthinking, you lose the freedom to be present. You stop trusting your instincts and start relying on mental calculations. You lose connection with the world around you because you're too busy trying to make sense of the world inside you. What started as self-awareness becomes self-doubt. And what started as reflection becomes a prison of overthinking where the mind never rests. When you become too self-aware, something subtle and strange begins to happen to your sense of identity. Instead of simply being yourself, you start watching yourself. It's as if you begin living life in front of an invisible mirror, constantly checking your reflection, not your physical appearance, but your inner one. Your behaviors, your thoughts, your reactions, your personality. You stop experiencing who you are from the inside and start observing yourself from the outside. At first, this seems harmless. You believe you're becoming more intentional, more conscious of your actions, more aware of how you show up in the world. But slowly, this awareness turns into self-consciousness. You begin curating yourself, shaping your personality in real time, adjusting your behavior based on how you believe you should be. Instead of how you naturally are, your identity stops being something you live through and starts becoming something you manage. You question your own authenticity. You wonder whether your humor is real or just a habit. You question if your confidence is genuine or forced. You analyze whether your kindness comes from the heart or from a desire to be liked. Every part of who you are. E becomes a subject of examination. As if you're constantly filling out a psychological report about yourself. This creates a disconnect inside you, a split between the person you naturally are and the version of yourself you think you're supposed to be. The more you watch yourself, the more you build an image, a mental portrait of who you think you are. But this portrait is not real. It's made of assumptions, interpretations, judgments, and over-analysis. It's shaped by fears, insecurities, and expectations, not truth. And the more you try to live up to this image, the more exhausting life becomes. You start performing small moments, even with yourself. You craft your reactions. You monitor your emotions. You try to think thoughts that match the identity you believe you should have. You feel pressure to be consistent, even when your humanity naturally fluctuates. You become afraid of contradicting yourself. You feel guilty for having conflicting emotions. You fear that changing your mind means something is wrong with you. Identity becomes a cage made of your own overthinking. Instead of allowing yourself to evolve naturally, you try to control your evolution. Instead of growing through experience, you grow through self-management. This creates a fragile sense of self, one that easily cracks under stress, criticism, or unexpected change. Because when your identity is built by analyzing yourself rather than understanding yourself, it becomes something you maintain rather than inhabit. And here lies the deepest danger. When you look at yourself too much, you stop seeing who you really are. You only see the mental reflection, the mirror version of yourself, not the living, breathing human being beneath it. You become wrapped in the idea of yourself instead of the reality of yourself. Excessive self-awareness convinces you that you're becoming more authentic. But in truth, it often pushes you further away from your authentic self. The real you gets lost behind layers of analysis, expectations, and over-constructed identity. Instead of discovering who you are, you end up creating a version of yourself that exists only in your mind. When self-awareness becomes overwhelming, the path forward is not to reject it, but to rebalance it. The goal is not to stop reflecting, but to remember that you are a human being, not a project. Healing begins when you allow yourself to exist without constant observation and reconnect with the simple, natural flow of being alive. The first step is understanding that you do not need to explain or analyze every thought, emotion, or choice you make. Not everything requires meaning. Not every reaction must be justified. Human beings are not perfectly coherent creatures. We are full of contradictions, shifts, moods, impulses, and instincts. These things are not flaws. They are signs of life. When you try to control or interpret everything you feel, you remove the beauty and spontaneity that make you human. To return to yourself, you must practice being present again, not as an observer, but as a participant. Instead of watching your emotions from a distance, allow yourself to feel them fully. Instead of questioning every action, let some moments unfold without interference. The more you experience life directly, the more the intensity of self-analysis begins to soften. It's also important to accept that not everything inside you needs to be understood immediately. Growth is not always conscious. Some lessons happen quietly in the background. Some changes unfold without your awareness. You do not need to monitor your evolution for it to happen. Just as your body heals cuts and bruises without you thinking about it, your mind can heal and develop without constant internal commentary. Real peace comes from allowing yourself to be imperfect. When you give yourself permission to make mistakes, to say the wrong thing, to misread situations, to react emotionally, you create space for genuine living. Perfection is not the goal. Presence is. The people who feel the most alive are rarely those who are perfectly self-aware. They are the ones who participate in life without turning every moment into a mental checklist. Another important part of returning to humanity is reconnecting with your instincts. Instincts are not random. They are formed from your experiences, your values, your subconscious intelligence, the parts of you that understand things without needing to articulate them. When you overthink, you silence these instincts. But when you trust yourself again, you rediscover natural wisdom that doesn't require analysis to unction. Ultimately, the path back is about shifting from control to acceptance. Excessive self-awareness creates tension because it tries to control every aspect of your inner world. But acceptance relaxes that tension. Acceptance allows emotions to rise and fall without fear. Acceptance allows actions to be taken without being judged. Acceptance allows your identity to breathe and evolve naturally, without being trapped in a mental framework. You don't need to constantly understand who you are. You simply need to live. Identity strengthens not by studying it, but by expressing it. Confidence grows not from analyzing yourself, but from allowing yourself to act. And peace comes not from controlling your mind, but from trusting it enough to let go The return to being human is not a technique, it is a surrender, a gentle release of the pressure to be perfect, to be consistent, to be constantly aware. It is remembering that the most authentic version of you is not the one you analyze, but the one you allow yourself to be.